All right, whoever's not, they'll join us in a few seconds. Okay, with that, I'm going to call to order the March 15th, 2021 Board of Aldermen regular meeting. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Can we get roll call, please?
Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Tice.
Here.
Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
Alderman Weggie.
Here.
Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman Eveling.
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Here.
All members are present.
Great, thank you. We have no announcements. We have no public hearing. Do we have any changes to the proposed agenda? Any objection to approving same by acclamation? Hearing none, it will be so approved. Onto the mayor and alderman report, just a few things. First of all, before I start, I want to first apologize for my attire. I am out of town tonight, and I forgot a collared shirt, so this is what you're getting. Hopefully no one will take any offense to that. Secondly, because I'm conducting this meeting on my phone, I don't have the ability to see everybody at one time, and it makes it difficult to run the meeting. So if you do have any, if you're making a motion, if you're seconding, or if you have any questions, if you could just go ahead and shout it out and you will be recognized. So with that, let's get on to the mayor's report. I have just a few things. The first is, you probably have already heard that President Biden signed into law, I think it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, this, what I'm going to call CARES Act Part 2, the $1.9 trillion. A lot of that money is earmarked for municipalities, for state governments, for county governments. And some of you already know this, some of you don't, but the ballpark is that the city of Brentwood is going to receive anywhere from $1.4 to $1.8 million. Originally we thought there were no strings attached to that money. We're now starting to realize there are strings attached in terms of for what purposes that money can be used, and how quickly it has to be used, and what kind of accounting has to be done. So with that, we're going to continue to look into what these requirements are, so we don't run afoul of the new law, the federal law. But I can assure you that we are going to do that, and whatever we find, we'll bring it to Ways and Means for our suggestions on how we can spend whatever it is we feel comfortable in spending. But I think the first step of that will be at the Ways and Means committee level. The second item that I have is, also some of you might know that the St. Louis County is now starting to distribute the COVID vaccinations through the fire departments. And originally it was going to be quite simply just fire districts that were putting these on. Again, this is separate from Barnes, from BJC, from SSM, ESSA Health, St. Luke's. This is what St. Louis County is doing. And a number of us mayors in the 5th district, and again, the 5th district are what we'll call the inner county or the inner municipality. That's District 5, Clayton, Maplewood, Richmond Heights, Ladue, you get it. And we all reached out to Sam Page and suggested that he look at using the municipal fire departments to aid in distributing the vaccinations. Richmond Heights has now been doing that with the help of our fire department, the fire department of Maplewood, Ladue, and obviously Richmond Heights. So that's great news, and they have more than doubled the number of vaccinations that they're giving out. It's some of the Brentwood elected officials and some of the city staff has been volunteering at that location, and what I've witnessed is just a very, very well ran organization. So hats off to all 4 of those fire departments. Thank you to St. Louis County for allowing us to participate, and Richmond Heights for helping out or hosting it, because it does provide a nice alternative. People have to drive further out to get that vaccination. And finally, and most importantly, we have very big news, and that is we want to recognize belatedly the happy birthday for Alderwoman Pat Ebeling. So, I don't want to embarrass her by me singing happy birthday, and I'm not going to put the other aldermen on the spot by asking them to do it either. But seriously, happy birthday, Alderwoman Ebeling. We're going to miss you, in a few short months, but I hope you had a good birthday. So with that, I'm going to move on to Alderman Plufka.
I have no report.
Alderwoman Tice.
Just a quick echo to happy birthday to Alderwoman Ebeling. There's an award that one of the nonprofits in St. Louis gives called Ageless Remarkable St. Louisans, and I would think that I would consider Pat ageless and remarkable. So happy birthday.
Thank you. Alderwoman Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy birthday, Alderwoman Ebeling. The only report I have is that Ways and Means will be having a special meeting on March 25th at 5:30. We are going to be reviewing and hearing a presentation on the compensation analysis that we commissioned from Higbee and Associates. As per usual, if any aldermen wish to attend that meeting and have questions, I would be happy to recognize you after the committee gets through theirs. And that's my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Alderman Weggie.
That's okay. I answered everything. Let's see. Ward 2 is going to have a ward meeting on Tuesday, April 6th. I know it coincides with election day, but we were having a hard time on the calendar, and there's not a lot on the election. That'll be virtual only. And then the Sustainability Commission normally meets on the 3rd or 4th Monday of the month. Normally it would be March 22nd, but because next week is spring break and a lot of the members of that have problems with kids, we're going to push that back to the 29th. So the next SUSCOM meeting is 3/29. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Gould.
Thank you. The Ward 3 meeting will be March 30th, Tuesday, March 30th at 7 p.m. Also virtual, but more details to come on that.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmiller.
Public Safety Committee will meet Wednesday, March 24th, virtually at 5:30. And happy birthday, Pat.
Thank you.
And Alderwoman Ebeling.
Well, first, thank you all for the birthday wishes. I appreciate that. And as you know, I'll be leaving, I guess, after next month, because when I took this, I said I was going to do it a year. Hopefully, Brentwood Forest would have an election, and we are having an election. I had hoped there'd be 5 or 6 people vying for this job, but unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. But we're going to have an election, and thank you all very much for being so kind to me. That's it.
Well, thank you, and I can assure you that after the election, we will definitely do something to recognize your service to the city and to Ward 4. Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes, Ward 4 is not having a dedicated ward meeting, but we will be part of the Brentwood Forest Board of Managers meeting on Tuesday, March 30th. It's virtual at 6 o'clock, and anyone's welcome to Zoom in.
Great, thank you. That's it for the mayor and alderman reports. We'll move on to citizen comments. If anybody in the audience cares to address the board, now is the time to do so. You'll be given up to 3 minutes. Kelly, if you could help me out with this.
There's no one with their hand raised at this point.
Okay, we'll move on to city administrative report. We have a couple of items. Bola, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Dimmitt. You all will see Jamie Barr on the Zoom screen. Jamie is our auditor and works for Daniel Jones Associates. She presented the 2019 audit at the Ways and Means Committee on March 4th, and we had planned on having her present the 2019 audit to the Board of Aldermen as well tonight. However, it is not on the agenda. So we would like to kindly ask Jamie if she's available to return at our next meeting. I think that's April 5th. I'm gonna check that real quick here. April 5th. So sorry for the mix-up, Jamie. We can't hear
You're
you.
muted.
Sorry. I should be available.
Thank you so much. So we'll bring Jamie back next meeting. Next is Brentwood Bound update, and I see Craig Schluter.
Evening, Craig Schluter with Navigate Building Solutions. I apologize. There were 2 warrant lists that came out after I produced this report, and I'd already taken some time off for personal reasons. So the first 2 categories of construction costs and soft costs are not going to be valid compared to the warrant list, but I'll get this fixed at the next warrant or at the next Board of Aldermen meeting. But with the report that you all have in your board docs, I'll still run through it. Soft costs, total spend since the last Board of Aldermen meeting is $422,526.32. That was for surveying, project management fees, Manchester Road improvements, flood mitigation, and GRG connectors, engineering design, and development consulting. And then next is property acquisitions. Total spend since the last Board of Aldermen meeting is $777,330, and that was spent on property acquisitions and commissioner fees. At the bottom of the Brentwood Bound update, you'll notice that I've got the GRG reimbursement. That's up to $3 million, so that's really exciting. That agreement was approved by the board at the last meeting, so I now have that shown below. That agreement's being routed for signatures as we speak. And then depending on how this next presentation goes with the board level, I know we got positive feedback at the Public Works Committee. I'll be shifting budgets around to accommodate the board's direction tonight. So the next meeting, I'll make sure to have some more updates, and I'll make sure to correct the actual amounts in the categories based on the latest and greatest warrant list that was issued on Thursday.
Great. Do we have any questions for Craig on the Brentwood Bound update? I'm not hearing any, so okay. Let's move on to item 8B.
Who's leading that off, Eric or Craig?
I believe Michael's gonna, if he's got the ability to share his screen, Michael with Christner is going to be presenting the event lawn coverage station schematic design along with the renderings. So we've gone through this at the Public Works Committee a couple times, gotten some great feedback. They've been a great committee to help support next steps with this. We're now at the point that we need to bring the board up to speed where the project is, where we think it's going, to ultimately get the whole board's feedback on next steps. So Michael, I don't know if you're able to share your screen, but I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. And hi, everyone. I'm Michael Browning with Christner Architects. And let me hit the share button here. You guys should see a screen that says Event Pavilion Design. Is that coming through?
No.
No.
Not yet.
There it
Oh,
goes.
Here it comes.
Showing up now?
Yes.
Great. All right. Well, so thanks everyone for the time tonight. And as Craig mentioned, we've really enjoyed working with the Parks and Rec, and really enjoyed working with everyone to this point. This has been a great project for Christner, and really excited to be a part of the Brentwood Bound initiative here. And I'm going to just kind of start from the beginning here, go through high level some of the concepts that we've been working with, and then I'll share the floor plan for the pavilion design, talk a little bit in detail about that, and then get into some rendered views of our concept, touch on sustainability, and we'll wrap up looking at budget as well. So, all right. So our site is right here, and you can see Brentwood Boulevard here on the left-hand side, and then Manchester Road running across the top. And it's an interesting site in that it really will be a kind of a front door experience for people arriving to the park. And it's really going to be it'll be an important first impression. And that was something that definitely influenced our thinking as we were looking at different concepts. There were quite a few sketches and different ideas that we explored, including a few that we developed into a little bit of detail and had good process and good feedback on, ultimately refining and then kind of culminating in the schematic design here, which I'll show here. But that arrival experience and that sort of first impression potential for our site, it really informed our concept. And we called this actually the gateway concept. And the intention here is to create a really nice experience for people coming into the park. And that gateway is also literally a part of the design here, where we've organized this project as these two buildings that are connected together underneath a single roof. And the space between those is a kind of a breezeway space, a kind of a protected entry that is literally this threshold that you move through and then out into the event lawn space. So thinking about this as an experience was something that we thought really interesting about this potential here. We also have sided the building, really trying to maximize its ability to support the event lawn space and all of the really great activities that will be able to happen at the event lawn. For example, we've thought about outdoor movies and concerts and different gatherings that at some point we hope will be able to happen again. And in thinking about that, the event lawn really sets itself up to have a natural focal point towards the north end of the lawn. And a couple of reasons for that: you've got the best views to the north and to the east. So those are going to be your views back to the park area. And this is also good for the solar orientation too. So setting sun will be over here, of course, on the west side, and that'll reduce any kind of issue with glare by having that kind of focus towards the north. And that really informed how we situated the building here with this terrace space that I'm hovering over right here in the northeast corner to really have a great connection to that kind of stage or that kind of temporary stage location in the event lawn. And really the whole west side, or I'm sorry, the whole east facing side of the pavilion is a terrace and creates a kind of a flow between the event pavilion and the event lawn. So we really loved the idea of having this kind of connection, indoor, outdoor, where the pavilion and the event lawn space really work together. And then just a couple other things to point out here: the parking area and the event lawn. We've got the intention here is that there's a really kind of comfortable flow between parking and the event lawn space. And then also the kind of the little north portion of our pavilion is restrooms. And the intention here is that we would have good visibility to the future playground and ball field from that restroom space. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail here as we kind of zoom in. And now we're looking at the floor plan a little bit closer here. That gateway I mentioned, the protected breezeway space, is right here, number 3. And so as you arrive to the pavilion, you can either turn left and go to the to the public restroom component here, or you can turn right and go into the event space itself. And so this multi-purpose space is about 1,100 square feet. And we've sized that to be, a flexible space to support a variety of different kinds of gatherings. 80 people can fit comfortably in that room, seated at 8-person round tables. It's also a great place that we can bring classes can be here. So we've thought of this also as a classroom space, and it could be set up for a easily 25-person class, and 40, potentially even 40 to 50 could be set up here in a classroom configuration. And so in that way, we've organized this space so that it has a good projection wall on it. So thinking about AV, so that you can support different class type activities. A couple other things in here. The event space has a small restroom, a family restroom with it. And we've also organized that so that it has a direct door to the exterior as well. So there's the ability to lock the event space and then still have access to that family restroom from the event lawn. And then a couple of supporting spaces here in the plan at the bottom of the image. You've got some storage here at number 6 for furniture, so tables and chairs, that sort of thing, to support the different modes that the event space could be, whether it's banquet or classroom, as I was mentioning. And then number 4 on here, we have some space for park maintenance to store items. At the top of the screen, the restroom component here, we've considered this in a couple of different configurations, and this is probably going to undergo a little bit more study in the next phase. But what we're showing here currently is that the restrooms have a kind of a pass-through design. And we liked that that could support, flow coming from both directions, both from the event lawn and, any kind of activities that are going to be happening in the event lawn, but then also from the north side. And I mentioned the playground and the ball field, and it's situated this way so that we can have a clear line of sight from both of those spaces, so that they can, anybody that is there, families that are there, can be able to see who's coming and going from that restroom. And so having those doors on the north side, we thought was helpful in that way. And then the terrace space here, number 2, that with that northeast orientation and a really kind of great relationship to the event lawn space. And in the middle of the terrace, we're showing a 2-sided fireplace. It helps to divide that up into comfortably sized spaces so you can have gatherings and you can have kind of nice groupings on both sides of that. And then also extending down along the east side here into the terrace. So getting into a couple of rendered views of the pavilion. This is the arrival. So that idea of the pass-through or the gateway that we were calling it. And you can see on the left side would be the restrooms, and then the right side would be your entry into the event pavilion, or into the event space, I should say. And then the event lawn and the terrace space is here in the distance. When you're inside the event space itself, the intention is this is a very flexible space. As I mentioned, could be supporting a class here to learn about the park or to learn about ecology. could also support a variety of different events. And the intention is this is rentable space. Architecturally, we really liked the idea that it has a very natural feel, and that it would feel really connected to the park in that way. So the use of natural materials is part of that. Having an exposed timber structure is one of the ways that we were looking to do that. Wood framed windows that would be aluminum clad, so very durable and kind of commercial quality windows, but using that, having that just kind of natural presence of the material. And then a lot of glass in this part of the building so that we would have a great visual connection to the park and the event lawn space in the distance. And you can see here, this is that fireplace that I mentioned, the two-sided fireplace in the background. Looking the other direction, and here showing the idea that as you're looking back towards the parking lot, we have less glass, and that actually gives us a nice opportunity to have some opaque wall that we could use for projection. So the teaching wall that I pointed out in the floor plan, that would be this side of the pavilion. And then we have a provision for a little serving area that's part of that as well. And a sink and some electrical outlets would be part of that. And just kind of a good setup for people to have, warming dishes and to kind of set up a little support area for different events. Looking the other direction here with the connection to the event lawn space. One thing I wanted to mention here is that an indoor-outdoor feel was something that we were really going for with this concept. And in this drawing, part of that is achieved by these pairs of double doors to connect you with the terrace. And actually some good news, we have found that the budget will support actually having this whole wall right here, if you can follow the cursor, having that whole wall be an opening wall system. What we specified as a product called Nano Wall for that. And basically that whole wall can just accordion open so that we'll have a really, really awesome connection between the interior space and the terrace and then the event lawn beyond. So that was pretty exciting. Here we're looking at now on that sort of wider portion of the terrace with the two-sided fireplace and the event space here in the distance. And again, the idea that the natural materials and that language would really permeate. We're looking at using some natural stone in addition to the exposed timber structure and some of the other wood elements that we would have here in the protected spaces. And then also we would have a nice decorative concrete for the actual floor finish here in the terrace areas and also in the event space itself. Now kind of zooming out, standing in the event lawn space, looking back at the building, and that gateway is kind of right here in the center with the pass-through and the parking lot beyond, terrace on the right-hand side, and then the interior event space right there. And so that opening wall that I was mentioning is this piece right here. That would all open up and give you a great connection between indoors and out. The architecture itself here, we have a pretty simple roof form, just a nice gabled roof. And a lot of the character that we're hoping to create here is through the use of the materials and through the use of creating this transitional space that really connects the event lawn space to the event space in the middle of the building. Just a little bit more about the materials. Use of Douglas fir for the exposed timbers, and that's a good durable wood that also has a kind of very attractive appearance with the grain. And then we would be detailing that with steel connections that would be done in I think in an attractive way using embedded steel connections. And a lot of that will be coming or, to be designed in the next stages of the project as we get into more detailed design, but just a little bit of an idea of kind of how that'll develop. Again, the notion that the windows could be, really attractive wood frame window with an aluminum cladding on it on the exterior for durability. And then I didn't mention the roof finish, but we were specifying a metal roof with a standing seam to it. And that would also enable us to have a way to clamp photovoltaic panels to the roof if we wanted to do that. And that kind of brings me here to sustainable design strategies that we've been including in our process here. Talked a lot about the use of natural materials. They would be regionally sourced where possible. The stone, for example, is a good example of that. We're also looking to use very high efficiency mechanical systems in the project. We would have a highly insulative envelope as well, so high, kind of a high R value for the enclosure. We'd be incorporating some operable windows in the event space so that we could make use of natural ventilation when we have good weather. Stormwater is something that is important with this project, and we've been considering a couple of locations where we could do a rain garden that would be kind of part of our stormwater mitigation approach. And then mention the PV array. That's something we're currently studying as an option, and that would be used as a kind of energy reduction. And then another option that we've also been exploring is to use geothermal as well. And we've got a little bit more on that here at the end of the presentation. So here we're looking now at the north side of the pavilion, and the event lawn is here on the left. The terrace where it really opens up right here where the cursor, and then here you can see the entry into the park restrooms, and the idea that from the ball field and from the playground, the future playground, you would be able to kind of keep an eye on anybody coming and going to that restroom. Another view now kind of looking towards the east face, or I'm sorry, this is the west facing side, incorporating the stone on this facade. And this we had imagined is a really attractive, regionally quarried limestone, and would add a lot of character just to that kind of natural quality of the material. Just a little bit here on some of the landscape elements. I mentioned the rain garden. We've been considering a couple of possible locations for that. Could be towards the front as you walk in, and just kind of a nice opportunity to exhibit some of that thinking. The other feature that I thought was kind of intriguing is we didn't want to have any gutters or downspouts on this building. And the fact that we have this terrace that engages the event lawn is kind of an interesting opportunity in that way. And then at the edge of the terrace, what we had shown is just a linear drain that would run along the edge of that concrete. And that also picks up the water coming off of the roof. And then on the other side, we have plantings that would pick up that water. And so those are some of the details that would be forthcoming as we get into the more detailed kind of aspect of the design process here moving forward. But we felt a lot of potential, relatively simple form, but a lot of potential for some beautiful details moving forward. And then to kind of close here, we are currently under budget, we believe, by a little over $30,000. The schematic design cost estimate, which Navigate just recently completed, came in at $2,119,000 and on a budget of $2.15 million. So this is, we felt, excellent news and has enabled us to, and that's inclusive of the opening wall that I mentioned. So we felt like we're moving in a good direction here. And that gave us a little bit of courage here to consider some additional features that might help us with the sustainable design initiative here, including looking at the addition of a roof-mounted solar array. And we had that in as an add of about $68,000. We're currently working with our engineers, our mechanical engineers, to confirm what the payback period would be with that array. But that would be, we're anticipating it's going to be in the 7 to 10 year range. But that would be a way to reduce our electricity consumption. And similarly, a geothermal system would be another way to further reduce the electricity usage. A little bit more expensive for that, and also a longer payback. Again, we're going to confirm this with our engineers, but are anticipating a pretty long payback on that system. And then the other piece of this that I wanted to mention is that we've been challenged to consider what would be necessary to get this project to be net zero, which is a really excellent ambition to have. And we love being a part of those efforts. So part of the analysis that our engineers are helping us with is to really understand what the energy savings would be from some of these features, and then what additional measures we could potentially implement to get all the way down to net zero. So with that, that's our design presentation. And I don't know, Craig, if there was any additional comments you wanted to make or open it up for discussion and questions.
Sure, I'll just add that what we're looking from the board tonight is that you're all excited about this project and that you're willing to increase the budget to incorporate some additional sustainability measures. So Michael did a great job of going through sustainability measures that are currently in design, but he just mentioned on the slide before that solar will cost extra, which would take us above the budget that we've talked about before, and geothermal is even more than that. So we just need some direction from you all, because we really need to advance design from schematic design to design development. And that's when we really start developing mechanical systems and electrical systems. So getting direction from you all that, hey, we're okay, if this is the case, we're okay with increasing the budget to incorporate some sustainability measures like solar panels or geothermal would really help guide us in the next 6 weeks after this meeting.
Hey, Craig, just to give some indication, what's the timeline on this? Is this approval that you need from the board tonight?
It would be helpful to just have some general direction. And when I say general direction, if you guys really would like some either solar and or geothermal, we'll immediately start working on it. But please note that, when we come back at design development, which is 60% design, which would be about 6 or 8 weeks from now, if you all decide, you know what, we don't want to do solar or geothermal, we could quickly, especially the solar part, we could pull that out of the costs. So you're not committing tonight that, hey, let's do solar, let's spend at least $70,000 on that.
Okay.
But we at least need to know from you all if it's something you want us to explore and advance in design. Obviously, if none of you are interested in this, we shouldn't invest a lot of time and energy exploring that. But some general direction from you all would greatly help the team out.
Brandon, comment?
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, I would make the motion that we have them continue with the solar and the geothermal. I know the Sustainability Commission has this on their agenda, and I'm looking for them to make a recommendation to the board of what they think the correct approach is in terms of geothermal and solar. And as Craig said, it sounds like they could still pull it out if we decide that the payback time of 30 years isn't really worth it, and maybe Sustainability Commission doesn't think it's a sound idea and it's kind of greenwashing it. I would make the motion that we have them continue with the solar and the geothermal, even if it continues to expand the budget, knowing that that's not the final decision. And then the other thing I'd like to just throw out there, I know that we're planning to have a workshop in the near future when we get the new Brentwood Forest Aldermen on, as well as, we're approving the architect for the playground. So we've got some facets of this that are all kind of coming together right now. And I think that workshop will really be the moment of clarity for the whole board, where we're bringing together all these components for final decision. A very long-winded.
Okay. So is your motion, just for the rest of the board, Brandon, is your motion then to go ahead and to incorporate in, I guess, into the budget for the sustainability, the solar panels as well as the geothermal package? Is that correct?
To continue progressing the design with those, with the knowledge that we may not finally approve that, and look to the Sustainability Commission for recommendation for that final decision.
Okay.
I'll second.
City. Okay, we got a second by Alderwoman Sims. I'll ask the city attorney, are we good with that motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Any discussion on that? Again, understand that we're not spending this money. We're not committing to spend this money. As I understand, it's essentially to authorize them to go ahead and incorporate this into the design.
Yeah, David, I have a question.
Go right ahead, Dave.
Thanks. But we are talking about a continuation of a design function of elements that may or may not make it into the final design. Can I ask Craig or the presenter, what's the cost? What's the breakout cost of continuing to incorporate geothermal and solar into the designs that you're talking about here?
Before you do that, hey, Michael, can you take us off, take the screen share off?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, Craig?
Yeah, so the solar piece there's not really any major cost there, because we've got a current supplier manufacturer that's helping us out with the amount of energy production that can be given with certain different solar arraignments. So I've already got that information. What we'll need from the mechanical engineering firm is once we come up with a high energy producing mechanical system, the amount of energy loads that will require, and then we can work with the solar company to help make sure that makes sense, and what the cost of the solar arraignment is on the roof. So that's minimal. The actual geothermal, we'll just have to look at, we can work with the contractor to minimize the design costs and that's where I came up with the initial budget, is working with a mechanical contractor that does this type of geothermal system. So we can work with them on that to help just come up with what would be required, and work with Christner's mechanical engineer on the equipment that actually goes in the facility. So there isn't, in my opinion, there isn't that much, time and money spent on design, because we've got some great contractors supporting us. And lucky for you guys, There's a new net zero building that's been coming up the street from this park. So I've got some lessons learned that I can apply for free there. So so anyway, to answer your question directly, I don't think it's that much of an effort. After we get to design development, which is the next presentation, which is 60% design, we'll need to make the call there from all you all, whether we do it or not, because going from design development to construction documents, that's when we really start putting pencil to paper, and we just can't spend a lot of time working on this stuff if you guys
Greg,
don't
can
want.
you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you,
No, you're fine.
I'm not certain, either I didn't ask, either you misunderstood my question or I misunderstood your answer, but what I was trying to ask was, as you go forward between now and the 60% design, you're saying that you don't have any additional costs associated with designing into the into this rendering what an array of solar panels would look like, or what the configuration of this thing is going to look like if we decide to use geothermal or some other more sustainable energy source. You're telling me that the cost of designing the building between now and 60% is nearly identical, whether you incorporate those two things or you don't?
I think it's minimal. I haven't directly worked on the cost. The solar is going to be free. I can tell you that right now. I've got a contractor that's already helped me with these budgets. He can help out with a solar arrangement. And once I get the energy loads from the mechanical engineer, I can run it to him, and he can let us know what the actual cost that will be required to go to net zero. That's free for solar.
I don't mean the cost of implementing these things. I mean the cost of drawing them and then presenting them.
Oh, so from an architectural standpoint, I'm sorry, Alderman Plufka, if I misunderstood you. So, you know what? I'll turn it over to Michael. I don't think that's a exorbitant cost, because we spend a lot of time in these projects exploring various different things that our clients want. So, Michael, I don't think that's a big deal, and I'll let you chime in if you think it is.
Well, so I think the architectural impacts would be in the size of your mechanical room primarily. And, we're not really, I don't anticipate that would significantly alter the architecture. And we would, and the geothermal, you won't see that, right? So there really won't be a rendering for that. Now, the photovoltaic array, you of course would see, and we were thinking it'd be roof mounted most likely. So we would come back with a rendering or a few renderings that would show you what that would look like. So we would have a little bit of time in there to create those renderings, few hours, but I would imagine that can be absorbed within our fee. It's not a significant amount it's not a significant enough time, I think, to get really concerned about at this point.
Thank you. That's the answer I was looking for. I just wanted to get that cleared. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any other questions?
Yes, Ebling.
Sure, go right ahead, Pat.
I wanted to ask one thing. From what I saw of the drawings, and I may be looking at them wrong because I'm not very good at this, it looked like the restrooms had 2 entrances and exits that you could go straight through.
Yes,
Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. It's
well, don't you think that's kind of dangerous with kids? I mean, you could see them go in, but they could go out without you seeing them go out. If you were a parent watching them, you also could not see if someone took them out. And that's just concerning to me, and I think it would be to any mother.
Yeah, and
ask the other mothers. That's all. I just wanted to know what you thought about that, or what everybody else thought about that.
Okay. Is that something that will come back to the board in your 60% design?
Well, yeah, and that was one. So I think I mentioned that was probably going to undergo a little bit more study in the next phase. And I think there's a couple of potential kind of responses to that. You know, one is that you keep the pass through or have doors on both sides and then figure out security or lock some of those doors at certain times. And then there was another idea that we had discussed in a public works meeting, which would be to have actually family restrooms, unisex toilet rooms that would face the breezeway, and then the public restroom or the kind of main restroom would face to the north, so it would only have a single entrance. So yeah, that I think it's an issue that we have discussed and that we're aware of, and I think that we would be continuing to explore that in the next phase.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Kathy is raising her hand.
No, thank you. Kathy?
I agree with the security on the restrooms. I also am a big fan of potty parity. I think there's a lot of wasted space with the dual entrance and exits. I'd like to see more restroom stalls for the women. Putting diaper changing stations in both men's and women's, but face it, women are going to take kids in more than the men are. And I think we need more restrooms. Brandon says no, but I do think that is an issue. So please consider some potty parity. I don't know which way you want to open it. Maybe you want the doors to do a 90-degree swing so you can see the doors on either side. I don't know, but I think that really needs to be redone. I have some other questions, and one's mathematical, because you're talking of 10 tables of 8 in that beautiful space. I love the open spaces. Your drawing only shows 8 tables of 8, which in my math makes 64. Given the social distancing, maybe we should not aim for 100 people. Maybe the 64 should be, or the 80 should be the, anyway, that doesn't work. The math doesn't work. I definitely like the solar panels idea. I don't know that much about geothermal, but I think we should have solar panels, and I don't think we need 16 renderings of them. Give us one rendering of solar panels, that's it. We all know what solar panels look like. And the rain garden concept is confusing me, because to me, rain gardens are put in place because there is a damp spot or a spot where you have runoff. It's not a separate decorative item to put in a garden that has wet feet. So if on the one side you have that drainage, which is attractive, I like that, the rain garden might go at the end where that drains. And I think that concept needs to be looked at. I'd also like to suggest for the concrete that you look at what the zoo does in Shaw Nature area, where with the concrete, they have impressed animal tracks, snail shapes, leaf shapes. It's a wonderful teaching device, so that if this were used as a classroom, that could be an extension of the classroom, and it wouldn't take a lot of design concepts to put in just, actual doing it in the concrete, but that might be a fun addition to this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone
Mr.
else?
Mayor, I have something.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nancy.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes, so first, we had a ward meeting last week, and I took a couple of the sketches in this presentation and showed them as sketches to the constituents, and it was positively received, so that's just an FYI. And then Alderman Gould had sent out to, I believe it was just the Public Works Committee, but it might have been the whole board, photos of some solar panels at the zoo that were sort of more of a shade area, so they weren't physically on top of a building. And I'm wondering if we could potentially think about something like that, because it would keep the really beautiful aesthetics that you are talking about with the design of this building, and also keep the great use of solar and the energy reduction costs that would likely come from that. So those are my 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmuller, I think you had your hand up.
Well, I did, but I was going to mention the solar offsite also, if that can, as Nancy just mentioned, instead of having it. I think that's going to be a beautiful showplace for not only our own residents, but people passing through on the GRG. I'm a little bit concerned on the solar panels on the roof. And if there's some way to maybe relocate those off the facility itself on the grounds, I just don't know what that would add to the cost. But if Michael, if you could maybe delve into that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, so we have in front of us a motion by Alderman Weggie, I believe it was, to go ahead and proceed down the road, including these two items. Again, with the understanding that a yes vote is you're not approving the spending of the money for this. It's just in a sense to kind of expand the budget for the time being, to allow the further design to incorporate these two items. So I think we've had enough discussion. So can we get a roll call, please, Kelly?
Did you call my name? You're muted.
Sorry, I couldn't get my mouse to operate. My
Okay.
apologies. Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman Ebling,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 8-0.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is the item 9, the consent agenda. We have 4 items under that. Are there any questions about any of those 4 items? Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman Ebling,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Okay. Consent agenda is approved 8-0.
Great, thanks. We have no old business. It brings us to item 11, the only matter under new business, and that is bill number 6320. Mr. City Attorney, can we get a reading of bill 6320 by title only, please?
Bill number 6320, first reading, an ordinance granting site development plan approval to Frederick Company Incorporated for access and parking lot modifications at 2827 South Brentwood Boulevard.
Great, thank you. Bola, is Lisa taking the lead on this?
Yes, she is.
Okay, Lisa, if you're in attendance, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. Good evening. So this property, 2827 South Brentwood, is located behind the Schnuck store. The property is bordered by South Brentwood Boulevard, West Pendleton, and Collier Avenue. So the property was previously owned by Bomarito Wines, and they purchased the property back in 2006 to build a warehouse office facility for themselves. And some of you may recall then, several years later in 2014, Bomarito Wines came back with another request for site plan approval to put a building addition on, and then also add additional parking area. So as part of that 2014 site plan approval, I did want to note that there was a request for a curb cut on Collier Avenue, and that was actually approved by the Board of Aldermen back in 2014. So if you had a chance to look at Mr. Frederick's proposal, there is a proposal with site plan approval tonight to approve a similar access on Collier Avenue, same width, same location. So I just wanted to point that out. And as you all know, Mr. Frederick has sold his property to the city as part of the flood mitigation project for Brentwood Bound. And he definitely expressed desire, interest to keep his business here in Brentwood. So he found the property at 2827 South Brentwood, wants to relocate Frederick Roofing to that location. And in order to make it work for him, he is needing to make some parking lot modifications and landscape modifications. So really the only thing I wanted to point out, the presentation of the bill tonight includes a site plan approval, but also does include the Board of Aldermen to approve that curb cut along Collier Avenue. So there were 58 notices that were sent out to residents in the immediate area. We did not receive any questions, any correspondence from any of the notices that went out. This project went to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their March 10th meeting, and we did not also have anyone that attended or participated for this proposal at that meeting. So this is presented to you tonight for first reading with a favorable recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission to approve it with the conditions as noted in the bill. And that was by a vote of 7 ayes, 0 nay. So maybe with the mayor's limited view, I just did want to mention that Mr. Frederick is connected to the meeting tonight, as well as Eric Fisher with George Stock and Associates. And that is Mr. Frederick's engineer for the project.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Mr. Frederick, do you care to address the board? It's not required, but if you want to do so, just unmute yourself so we can hear you. Nope, we're not there yet. Still can't hear you. Nope.
You're still muted.
Kelly. Yeah, you're still muted. Still, yeah. It's a little.
How about now?
There we go. You got it.
I just want to say, you know, we've been happy to be in Brentwood for the last 50 years, and we're excited to be in Brentwood for another 50 years. So we're you know, tickled about our new property, and can't wait to get it all you know, redone, and it's going to look sharp, and it's going to be a property that Brentwood and Frederick family and Frederick Company is going to be very proud of.
Great. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Lisa or Mr. Frederick or his representative, Mr. Alderman Plufka?
Thanks. I just had a question, and I look at the site plan and I see the chain link fencing with PVC slats, and then I look at the actual ordinance or the bill, proposed ordinance, and under section 2 it says a 6-foot tall site-proof fence depicted in site plan shall consist of solid wood. So, Lisa, is the ultimate design going to be that fence is a wood fence, or is it going to be a chain link fence with PVC slats?
So thank you for the question. I'll be glad to answer that. So that was still one of the recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Commission. They felt like the wood site-proof fence would be more compatible, complementary to the neighborhood, because this does, I didn't say that, but this does abut up to a single-family residential property. And so we talked to Mr. Frederick about it, and he was amenable to go ahead and change chain link to wood. So that's why it still is listed, though, as a condition, because we didn't want any confusion about it being listed differently on the site plan.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sure. Anybody else have any other questions?
Your Honor, Steve's here.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Go right ahead.
Hey, Bob. It's great that you're trying to stay in Brentwood here. I just got a question regarding on your site currently, you've got a lot of outside storage of roofing material. Will that be moving now in and be permanently in the warehouse itself?
Yes, almost everything will be inside, except some of the larger trucks and some of our containers will be outside. But that warehouse is big enough that all our material, equipment will be inside, and some of our pickup trucks too.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the vehicles, and then the dumpsters that you have. Those will be shielded by that wooden fence?
Yep.
From view?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing no questions, then Mr. Frederick, we will see you back at the next meeting, which will be April the 5th.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, let's move on to the last item. That's citizen comments. Item 12. Anybody in the public care to address the board? Now is the time to do so.
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed? Motion carries. Great. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on April 5th.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.